without any further delay, let's begin the reveal, Chris, and we'll begin with the #1 overall seed. Who you got?
The #1 team is Alabama on the strength of 13 wins in the quad 1 and 2. They have a very strong resume, and that win at Houston put them over the top.
Very impressive group, and a young group, guys. They start 3 freshmen. Clearly, perhaps the freshman of the year in Brandon Miller. He's been outstanding. They also have one of the outstanding transfers, Mark Sears, who transferred from Ohio University. This is a team that's played extremely well to this point.
And think about those freshmen played against Houston way back long ago earlier in the season, got that win on the road, which separated them.
Yes. Alabama's the #1 team in both polls. They lost to Tennessee. They could fall to #2 in the rankings. They're #2 in the net. But it illustrates the difference between a poll ranking and setting a bracket. They're exactly where they ought to be.
Okay, so we have Alabama in the South. Let's move on now, Chris, to the 2nd overall seed.
The 2nd team is Houston, undefeated on the road with an impressive win at Virginia.
And Houston in the Midwest.
Tell you what, Greg, when you look at this team, I don't know exactly who's going to be the other #1 seeds, but I have the most conviction about this group because of their toughness, their talent, their coaching. They've got a preeminent freshman in Jarace Walker, and they've got a game changer in Marcus Sasser.
All right, Chris, who's our third #1 seed?
Purdue in the East.
Purdue Boilermakers. That'll make some people happy.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Far be it for me to quibble with the chair and his committee, but
you're going to quibble anyway?
But I'm going to do it anyway. Okay. At least I'll do it to your face and in person. But I would have Purdue ahead of Houston in terms of the overall seedings. Purdue has 4 losses, but all were in quad 1. Houston has the quad 3 loss at home to Temple, and Purdue has 9 quad 1 wins. And by the way, that's a big difference for Purdue, Kansas City versus New York. But
okay, so now we have Alabama, Houston, Purdue. Who joins them on the top line?
#4 is Kansas in the West on the strength of many quad 1 wins and a strong strength of schedule.
How about 17 quad 1 games? I'd never have a schedule like that. and they're 12-5 in those games.
Wow.
And with Jalen Wilson, National Player of the Year candidate, these guys are really deserving of a #1 seed.
Oh, there's lots of basketball still to be played, Chris, but given that Alabama lost on Wednesday night, the 8th time a #1 has gone down, and Purdue has dropped 3 of its last 4, how much change might we see among those #1 seeds?
We could see some change. It'll be interesting to see how the next 3 weeks unfolds.
You said it's an ever-changing process, isn't it?
Absolutely it is.
All right. Alabama's never been a #1 seed. Houston was top dog once in 1983, while Purdue has been a #1 seed 3 times. Kansas, this would be old hat for them. 15 #1 seeds, including last year. We have our 4 top seeds. Chris, how about the #2 seeds? Give us 5 through 8.
#5 is Texas in the Midwest. #6 is Arizona in the West. #7 is Baylor in the South. And #8 is UCLA in the East.
well, 3 Big 12 teams in the top 8. This is exactly my point. And it's a great reminder of the consequence of these games that are being played, not just for the conference title. Baylor's at Kansas today. If Baylor wins that game, I'd venture to say they'd be a 1, Kansas a 2.
Yeah, it certainly would be possible if that played out the way you just talked about it, Seth. I see the Big 12 as well, but I see Baylor. 3 guards that are terrific. Keontae George, Adam Flagler, and L.J. Cryer, and they can make it problematic for whoever they face because they spread you out, spray threes, and they've got everyday Jonathan Tchamwa back, and that guy gives them presence in the paint. Oh, boy, keep an eye on those Bears. They are growling right now at the right time.
I have felt that pain. And I'll tell you what, I see UCLA and Arizona who might not be able to get to a 1 seed because of the strength of the other teams. But I remember in 16, on the last day, we got knocked out of the 1 seed to the 2. We were crushed, and we wound up winning it as a 2 seed. Those 2 are good enough to win it as a 2 seed.
All right, guys, we're just getting started here with 8 seeds down. We will round out the Sweet 16 when the NCAA March Madness men's bracket preview continues. Welcome back, everyone. Before we continue the reveal with Chris Reynolds, the chair of the NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Committee, let's recap for you the top 8 seeds. Alabama sits #1 overall. It would be the first 1 seed in that school's history. The Tide joined on the top line by Houston, Purdue, and the reigning national champions. Round 2 shows Texas, Arizona, Baylor, and UCLA. Let's move on now to the #3 seeds. Chris, 9 through 12.
#9, Tennessee in the Midwest. #10, Virginia in the South. #11, Iowa State in the East. And #12, Kansas State in the West.
All right, you get first shot, Clark.
I get first shot at him. You look at Kansas State, when you think about who else could have possibly been on this line, we'll go to Kansas State now. Jerome Tang, in his first year, has the Wildcats solidly in the tournament. And it's a great story amongst many great stories in college basketball, not only Jerome Tang, but how about Keontae Johnson, transferring from Florida after missing a year and a half, almost 2 years of basketball, having a Big 12 all-conference type season.
So the ACC is going to be kind of lightly represented in this tournament and on these top 16 seeds. But the Virginia Cavaliers, in my view, another championship coach, they have the chops to win the whole thing. I really believe that. Once again, playing that style of defense and the half-court tempo that really becomes more important in March. But this team, much like Tony Bennett's championship team, can score the ball, bringing in a transfer and Ben Vanderplas, guys who can go get a bucket. That's scary when you think about a Virginia team can score.
It is, and I look at Tennessee in the 3 spot here, obviously close to being a 2, and they've just beaten the #1 team in the country this week, right? And they're a 3 seed, so it shows you the balance and the depth of this tournament. But Tennessee is one of the best defensive teams in the country, which spurs their half-court offense when they can get out in transition. They are a scary team as a 3 seed.
Chris, given the kinds of things that Jay is talking about here, how tough was the seeding on the 3 line?
It was very difficult. We had a lot of conversation around that, Jay. Speaking of Tennessee, they could have easily been a 2 seed. They struggled in the quad 2 if you look at their quad 2 record, but they have strong wins in the quad 1.
And we still might say they may still be a 2 seed by the time Selection Sunday rolls around.
We'll see.
There you go. Okay. Let's round out the top 16. Chris, give us the number 4 seeds.
Number 4 seeds, we have number 13, Indiana in the South. Number 14, Marquette in the East. Number 15, Gonzaga in the West. And number 16, Xavier in the Midwest.
Okay, so there we are. The top 16 in the bracket preview. And now some questions for you.
Well, I look at my Big East brethren here, and I see Marquette is leading the Big East. Xavier is tied with Creighton and Providence for second, but Creighton's really coming on, 8 out of 9. How close was Creighton to get on this 4 line?
It's razor thin, Jay. I mean, we spent countless hours talking about Creighton. They could have easily been in that 16th spot.
And in a year, Chris, where we've seen tremendous compression across college basketball, there had to be some other teams being considered for that 4 line as well. Name some of them.
Absolutely. In alpha order, Creighton, Miami, St. Mary's, and UConn.
Wow.
Narrowly missed the top 16.
St. Mary's, a team out of the West Coast Conference. Gonzaga, we're used to seeing up a lot higher as a 4. With a team like Gonzaga, Houston playing in the American, they don't have as many opportunities to get quad 1 wins as teams in the Big 12 and the Big 10. You think being in a smaller conference like that, power rankings-wise, helps them or hurts them?
Well, they helped themselves. And those 2 teams, for example, Gonzaga, they played Alabama on a neutral site. And so they helped themselves in the non-conference. And so did Houston by going to Virginia.
Jay, I'm interested. When you were coaching, did you give a whole lot of thought to this process that was going on, or did you not have time?
Tell the truth. Be honest, man.
If we were in the top, if we were a 1 seed, I hated it. But because I didn't want our guys to think they had accomplished something.
Wow.
If we were lower, I didn't mind them watching it because then I knew they'd have the drive to get up there and be a 1 seed.
So you weren't one of those guys that just said, we think the committee made a mistake with us.
No, never. We really did trust the committee to do what they do and then just play basketball. We controlled playing basketball.
Okay.
You weren't happy all the time, but you did trust the committee and you controlled what you could control.